So almost 6 months on since the launch of the Pixel Watch 4 and 3 months since you've been able to buy it, just how has this wearable aged? Let's get into it here with our long-term review of the Pixel Watch 4. If you're a new guy around here though, then you might want to hit that subscribe button for more fallout, news and reviews on all things Google, and I'd love to have you as part of the gang. Cheers. So since this was made available in October 2025, I've been wearing the Pixel Watch 4 almost daily since it was available, and to the credit of the team behind this actual watch, it's been largely, or looks largely the same as it has since I have unboxed it. I couldn't necessarily say the same of any previous Pixel Watch generation due to the domed shape and likely the softer materials used on those versions, and after a quarter of a year of daily wear and tear, things like bumping into door frames, reaching for car trunks or a car boot here in the UK, picking weights up from a weight rack and clashing with those weights themselves. In terms of the general usage and abusage of this wearable, I'm genuinely surprised at how well it has held up. The glass is remarkably free from any scrapes or micro abrasions, something which has always been a problem with any piece of technology with glass front and center. I've caught it a few times as well on jacket buttons and zippers or zips, and there's no damage here so far, so that could be a bit of a lucky break for me, but whatever Google did do in the hardening process on this actual 360 display, at least in my experience, it's holding up much better than previous generations during a previous time period from release, or basically comparing to those. I think even the coloured metal frame on the actual chassis of this has maintained its moonstone finish without the typical or sometimes pitting that you can see with cheaper aluminium wearables. Not that I worried too much about that, as I have to say I'm not an overly sweaty person anyway. This is actually the first time in a while that I've also kept a Pixel Watch stock, as it were. No extra accessories, no extra straps, no add-ons, that kind of thing. Just I've kept it default, which is kind of out of character for me, but I haven't wanted to hide the design for whatever reason this time, and yeah, that feels a bit out of character for myself. Just back to the display for more than a brief moment, as I think to me this remains the highlight of the entire Pixel Watch 4. It's utterly gorgeous. It's one of the best displays of its type, and as we said in our initial review, it kind of bleeds into the soft curves and sort of floats in position. I haven't actually tied at all when looking at it day to day. Before I really get into the meat of Wear OS 6, I think we need to talk about the lack of watch faces that take true advantage of this better than ever screen shape though. Lots of options that came out of the box I think still feel pretty derivative. They're great, don't get me wrong, but they're more like remixes of the same 3 or 4 designs that we've seen since the first generation. I will admit that the use of colour tonal sections is better now, but surely we can get some more options. Hopefully in a future release we will get them. And I think with this much screen real estate and this unique curvature of it, I want to see Google push the boundaries here, give us something that actually uses that convex shape for more than just a cool reflection. I think that would be really nice to see. Other things to note, or things that I have noticed since wearing this, the haptics are a marginal step up over the competition. I think it's one area that Google really does lead other Android wearables. You get crisp buzzes here and there when a text or an email pops up. I do feel that this enhances the dome shape, or at least the dome shape potentially enhances this because there's more actual real estate for it to vibrate and to buzz on the Z-axis or the Z-axis as it were. We'll get into some of the use cases, but I do think the speaker still needs some work. And while the haptics are more full, the speaker's really, really tinny and it doesn't get particularly loud. I haven't enjoyed taking calls on my wrist when in a public situation for that reason, as it just isn't loud enough to cut through low volume traffic or even a loud supermarket, for instance. For a quick Gemini response here and there, and when I'm at home, I'm kind of satisfied, but I have to say it isn't all that great. As for Wear OS 6, I think this is a culmination of what Material U has always meant to be. It feels perfectly at home on this larger display, and all of the touches help elevate the Pixel Watch 4, at least the Pixel Watch 4's out-of-box experience, far above previous versions. It is really, really at home here, as I noted, which is what I'm kind of trying to say in a short way. It isn't without some irksome areas though. So I will say some notifications still need work. Google Home in particular remains really, really finicky. Getting a doorbell alert or only having an image or a clip go missing on the watch is kind of a specialized kind of frustration here. It's likely an app level issue rather than the watch issue, but when this is a key selling point of a Google smartwatch, you kind of expect these things to work. I'm hesitant to give it a pass, but yes, it could just be an issue that I'm overlooking or nitpicking with the Google Home application on Wear OS, which isn't technically the watch itself. A bigger problem I'm frustrated by though is, at least according to the literature, Google is currently sticking to 3 years of updates for the Pixel Watch 4. I think in a world where Samsung is pushing 4 years and Google also offers 7 years for the phones, this really hurts and it feels like a bit of a whiff. I do think if this is truly the best of Google's hardware, then they need to match the industry leaders in longevity, and sadly, at this point in time, that's Samsung. And I think why not do it for the firm's most repairable wearable that they've ever made? It seems like a bit of an oversight. One of the major functions that the Pixel Watch 4 touts is Raise to Talk or Raise to Gemini. When it works, it's still pretty much magic in action. I love being able to raise my wrist, ask a question and get an answer. There's none of that Google wake word required, but you can still use that if you want to, and I think that's another nice option. I don't necessarily think it's a game changer in the way some people potentially do, but I do think it is very good. Good, but not perfect. I've actually had my fair share of random activations, and it seems to be really like picks and chooses when it does it. Just think Gemini trying to join a conversation it wasn't invited to, and it's one of the reasons I don't wear it while I'm recording these kind of videos. I've actually disabled and re-enabled it a few times over the past few months because of that, and currently it's back on my phone back on my watch because of the utility, and being able to do things like set a reminder or checking the weather mid-task is kind of too high up my list of priorities to give up. But Google does need to dial in that intent recognition, that kind of action when you move your wrist. I think when cooking, for instance, have it just interrupt my Zen session, it's kind of frustrating. One of the best new features that has been added since the Pixel Watch 4 has been released, though, is the new double pinch gesture, which allows you to accept certain things within the UI. There's also a wrist turn, which lets you select things as well. These are fantastic. This is one of those features that I think other watches, like the Apple Watch, has had for a long time at this point, and it is fantastic to see this. It works perfectly in my own experiences. I haven't used it probably as much as I should have done, but I actually prefer this to the Raise to Gemini functionality, because I just find that it's a little bit more useful day to day. You don't necessarily have to stretch across with your other hand, your opposite hand, and touch the screen and interact with it. You can just quickly double pinch and it will send a message, for instance. It will reply to things, it'll dismiss things with a wrist turn as well. Fantastic feature. I'm glad that Google added this. And it also feels like a really good usage of the functionality that has been on, as I say, other smartwatches for a long period at this point. As for the chip inside, the new Snapdragon chip does feel no different to me to last year's wearable. However, I do think some of the optimizations and the larger screen real estate on this small form factor do improve things quite drastically. I think we kind of hit an inflection point over the past few years, or a few years back, with the move away from those awful Snapdragon Wear 4100 processors. Most smartwatches now run nicely, and the Pixel Watch 4 is as smooth as silk 99.9% of the time. I've never had a crash when wearing this. I've only really had slowdowns when my battery was way below that 10% level. So I think in that regard, it seems absolutely fine. Wear OS 6 looks beautiful, it runs beautiful, and that's what you need to know. As for fitness tracking, I'm going to be blunt. I do not use the Pixel Watch 4 for fitness functions in a traditional sense. I find the obsession with tracking every single calorie or every single movement fluctuation a bit redundant to me specifically and in my day-to-day life. I kind of see it as a nice to have rather than an essential. Most of my fitness tracking boils down to walking or step count or distance count specifically. The best news though is that after a quarter of a year, I do think that Fitbit is getting exponentially better at tracking walks and activity after the fact. So after you've come home from it and you've not set tracking manually. I think it's a passive method of tracking my movements. I really do like this, as I can kind of see a map of where I've been on an evening walk or a morning dog walk. And in that regard, I do think the Pixel Watch 4 is great for walking, running, that kind of thing. But I do think it relies far too heavily on that Fitbit Premium subscription, as I alluded to in our previous review. I think putting deeper insights behind a paywall on a $400 watch is a really a bitter pill to swallow. And while Google is not doing anything that other brands aren't, it could have done with some revamps to really make that subscription worth it. I'm lucky that I get this as part of my monthly Google One plan here in the UK, and that includes Nest Aware as well, but I wouldn't pay for the service otherwise, put it that way. I'm also very hesitant to use a smartwatch for my own fitness tracking goals like weightlifting. Kind of feels a bit pointless when I can just note my progress on my phone and note the reps that I've done. No Android smartwatch has really truly perfected the gym experience yet, so that's not a massive slight on the Pixel Watch 4. The OnePlus Watch 3 though does have a much more robust body-specific weight training option that's heading in the right direction. As for Fitbit though, well, rep tracking is essentially non-existent and it's something I wouldn't use here anyway. I don't get too frustrated though with the fitness options of the Pixel Watch 4, put it that way, because I simply don't look for them. The same goes for sleep tracking. To me, that's the definition of a bit redundant in my use case, especially as I kind of know when I haven't slept well. I don't need a graph to tell me that I'm tired. In fact, the added anxiety or life anxiety of seeing that poor sleep score actually made me stop wearing these kind of wearables in bed anyway. And The slight discomfort in wearing a metal and glass puck while trying to rest, I think, is an easy feature for most of us to skip. And while I don't see myself as potentially a target demographic for the Fitbit suite, I do think the tracking it's adequate. I don't think it's anything more or anything less. So I wear my watch every single day for upwards of 12 plus hours, save taking it off here and there to go to the gym, that kind of thing. But that gives me around 2 days or so of wear, and that's more than possible to me given I don't track those workouts. That is a decent chunk of time in my experience, and the 45mm Pixel Watch 3, which was closer to a 36-hour experience, meant that this is a big jump up. That's kind of the baseline I think we've wanted for quite a few years now, but I do think the real hero with the Pixel Watch 4 is that rapid charge cycle you get with it, as it kind of eliminates any anxiety I've had with charge level anyway. I know, we all groaned when Google changed the charger again. Yes, this does break up the clean aesthetic, and I hated the visual footprint at first when I took this out of the box, but after 3 months of use, I've kind of done a total 180 on this. The new side-mounted dock is significantly more reliable, for starters, than the old pin pads at the back. I haven't had a single ghost charge where potentially one pin might not get fully aligned, or there might be a bit of dirt in there, or the watch strap has curled up and kind of dislodged it from the charging puck itself. That happened to me so many times with the Pixel Watch 3, the Pixel Watch 2 and the Pixel Watch. No such issues with this dense, stable base on the Pixel Watch 4 though. I think it helps that it also looks a lot better when it's docked. More on that in just a moment though. The real star of the show is the charging speed, as it's changed how I charge the Pixel Watch 4 over the past few months. I used to charge in the morning. Now I just kind of take my watch off for 5 or 10 minutes here and there while I'm at my desk to just give it a bit more juice. In many cases, it can give me anywhere between 30 and 50% extra lifespan as a result of doing that. And a day of extra wear for the sake of that short space of time really does start to change how you view a wearable like this. And just touching on the dock for a second again, I'm still hopeful that we'll get some kind of mini smart display integration where the watch shows a Nest-style clock face while docked, but honestly, it charges so fast now that you're rarely looking at it on a stand for long enough to possibly care about it. Maybe we could have a slow mode for overnight chargers out there. Some of you might be one of those people. I think that could be a cool function to have, but no signs of that being the case, at least at this stage. To kind of summarize all these into a bit of coherent thoughts at the end of this, a quarter of a year after hitting store shelves and almost 6 months after the Pixel Watch 4 was unveiled on stage, the dust has kind of finally settled now, and in that settled dust, the Pixel Watch 4 has kind of emerged as an obvious candidate for the best product in Google's current lineup. To understand why I'd say that, take the Pixel 10 for example, which we've talked about at length here on the channel. It is a decent product in its own right, but it feels more like a 9S or a 9 Plus in lots of ways. It just kind of refines what was already working quite well. The Pixel Watch 4 though, on paper, should do the same. Instead, some of these design choices and design changes kind of make it feel like the first time that Google has fully realized its vision for their wearable lineup, and it has the design that was probably desired from day one, and it finally has the hardware to back up some of those software ambitions that they had from day one. I'm also surprised at just how much more durable it is than I anticipated, given that even domier design. And I don't baby this thing, I don't baby any kind of wearables that I wear, but if you have a Pixel phone, this is kind of like the perfect companion now. It's simple, effective, and it bleeds into the background without feeling overly techie or too fitness focused, which, yeah, could be a good and a bad thing depending on how you look at it. It has overtaken my previous favourite Wear OS wearable, which was the OnePlus Watch 3, which I wore for the better part of, I think it was about 6 or 7 months last year. It is, as far as I'm concerned, the best overall Wear OS watch for most people to buy. And given my fairly low expectations when it arrived a few months ago, I think that this is a big step for the Pixel Watch and one of the best products that Google has made, period. And yeah, I'm quite shocked by that. Let me know what you think though down in the comment sections below about the Pixel Watch 4. I think it was, and it definitely doesn't necessarily feel like that now, Google's sleeper hit of 2025 and now into early 2026. Yeah, as I say, let me know what you think down in the comment sections below. It is a strange wearable in that it doesn't deviate too much, but it kind of makes the experience a little bit more whole, if that makes sense. Yeah, cheers for watching though, and I'll speak to you later.